Y'all ready to learn about minor prophets?
Thank you for your welcoming. And I'll see you. I'll be back.
If you
Sorry.
need a handout, we have them going around.
Here we go.
If we need some more, we can always print off some more. But anyway, we're looking again today to finish up.
Thank you. I got it, brother. Yeah.
And
Thank you,
last
guys.
week,
Thank you so much.
big thanks to John McFarland for running with the lesson.
I got it.
Certainly appreciate it. He started off, remember what he started off talking about last week? Malchus. Yeah. Remember about his ear?
Yeah.
John. That Jesus healed? Okay. Well, George Carlin quote was up there, which and he did tell all of you, because I watched it, that even though I'm not a fan of George Carlin, I found his quote interesting anyway. But yeah. So it was a good, interesting quote there. He did. Today we're going to finish up talking about Hosea. Like I said, if you don't need a handout, just let us know. We can get you one. We don't have enough. We can always print some more off. Got any some? Didn't we have any more right here?
Here's another.
We have another copy here. I think I typically print 25, so maybe this next time I ought to do 30. Don't waste paper. Okay, so we're getting back into Hosea, and Hosea's message, Israel's objects of trust. Next slide there, David. And question here for us. What are some things people put their trust in that enable them to feel confident and secure? What is your trust in, or people's trust, not necessarily yours, that people feel confident and secure?
Their husband. Money.
Their husbands.
Money.
Yeah.
Money.
Their husband.
Everyone but Deborah's husband. or Luke's wife.
Money.
Money. What's that? Your retirement fund, which is money.
How about something novel like Christ?
Christ? Yeah. How many of you put full trust in Christ? Yeah, we like to be able to say that, and hopefully all of us do, but sometimes we can put our trust in Christ, but we like to have a 401k that's healthy as well, correct?
Right.
Yes. So people do put their trust in that. Put their trust in what? Police officers and firefighters? Yeah. People put their trust in our military, correct? Yes.
Right.
Other things that you put your trust in? Physicians, doctors, yeah. We do put a certain amount of trust into those types of folks. We trust, a lot of different things for different reasons. And, people feel confident and secure in different things. Right?
Right.
Money's a big one. Just different things in life, right? Anything else? You aren't talking much today. Put your trust. You feel confident and secure in your preacher. All right. Yeah, after Albert threatened to pick me off as a sniper. Well, this is great, because the good thing is, I know some of you in here are packing heat. So, yeah, let's don't have a firefight in church. Let's move on as well. So those things in which we put our trust determine how we live, and it profoundly affects the impact and all the people that we become. Hosea chapter 9, verse 10 says, "When I found Israel, it was like finding grapes in the desert. When I saw your ancestors, it was like seeing the early fruit on the fig tree. But when they came to Baal Peor, they consecrated themselves to that shameful idol and became as vile as the thing that they loved." In 2 Kings 17:5, they rejected his decrees and the covenant he had made with their ancestors and the statutes that he had warned them to keep. They followed worthless idols and themselves became worthless. Jeremiah 2, verse 5. "What fault did your ancestors find in me that they strayed so far from me? They followed worthless idols and became worthless themselves." You see, you got to look in here, go back to our question. What do people put their trust and confidence in? These people put their trust in idols. We read of Baal, the idol Baal, which is mentioned several times throughout the Hebrew Bible. And they put their trust and their confidence in these idols, as well as their king. The lesson we're going to see here is basically, who do you put your trust and your confidence in? Who do you put your trust and your confidence in? The truth of life is certain and inevitable. We become like what we give ourselves to. So, looking at then the things in which Israel trusted. Israel trusted in Baalism. Israel first came into contact with Baal during the wilderness wanderings, and they encountered it constantly while they were in Canaan. That comes from Numbers 25, 1 through 5. Baalism was a fertility cult, which corresponded to the seasons of the year. In the fall, the god Baal dies, goes to the underworld, where he stays all winter. In the spring, the goddess Anath overcame Mot, which is death, and raises Baal from the dead. Then all the flowers, trees, birds, and animals are revived. Because it was a fertility religion, worship of Baal involved illicit sexuality that included prostitution, drunkenness, and sexually immoral rites. The Lord's words of condemnation point to this reality. In chapter 4, verses 10 through 12, they will eat but not have enough. They will engage in prostitution but will not flourish, because they have deserted the Lord to give themselves to prostitution. Old wine and new wine take away their understanding. My people consult a wooden idol. A spirit of prostitution leads them astray. They are unfaithful to their God. It goes on, second part of 12 through 14. They sacrifice on the mountaintops and burn offerings on the hills, under oak, polar, and terebinth, where the shade is pleasant. Therefore your daughters turn to prostitution, and your daughters-in-law to adultery. I will not punish your daughters when they turn to prostitution, nor your daughters-in-law when they commit adultery, because the men themselves consort with harlots and sacrifice with shrine prostitutes. A people without understanding will come to ruin. Israel also trusted in alliances with foreign nations. Menahem sent large sums of money to Tiglath-Pileser to support his own kingship. 2 Kings 15:19 says, then Pul, which Pul there is also meaning Tiglath-Pileser, king of Syria, invaded the land, and Menahem gave him 1,000 talents of silver to gain his support and strengthen his own hold on the kingdom. In 2 Kings 15:20, Menahem exacted this money from Israel. Every wealthy person had to contribute 50 shekels of silver to be given to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria withdrew, and he stayed in the land no longer. See, Hoshea, not to be confused with Hosea, Hoshea made a treaty with So of Egypt in order to throw off the yoke of Shalmaneser V. Are all of you guys following all this history?
Not really.
Yeah, y'all are like, wow, I am thinking of all the stuff I have to do after Bible class today, right? I have to do the lawn, I gotta cut grass, and I could care less about kings of Israel that are long dead, right?
Kind of right.
All right. So the second part of all this that I'm going to go into for the next 20 minutes is the history of all these kings. Yeah, like, we're going to die. We're going to die right here in church. Sorry, I probably included too much of that. It is pretty interesting if you kind of look at it and through the Bible and who the kings were and how things come together and correlate here, as well as different names. Because you'll see a name of a king in one place and a name of a king in another place, and it could be the same king, okay? It's just called two different names. And sometimes even the one on King So is actually, the So is short for a longer name, but in some places they call him So, and in some places they call him a longer name. And that is, I can tell you are enthralled with all this.
Well, not only that, but they mention the kings of Judah and they mention the kings of Israel. And we get those.
I got an idea.
You have to really pay attention to it. It says, during the 50th reign of so-and-so, so-and-so became king of Judah. You're going, what?
Yeah.
They go throwing the kings of Israel, Egypt in there,
Yeah.
and everything else.
Yeah. And so what I'm showing here, though, the bottom line is they are making treaties, making alliances with people, and that's where they are putting their trust and their confidence and their hope.
David did that, Solomon did that, I mean, all of it.
The United States does that. So,
Gary, it's interesting when you think about the age of our country, because the time period we're sort of talking about is a max 100 and 150 years, 200 years here in the minor prophets, sort of thinking, right? Roughly.
I don't know. I'd have to look that up, Todd.
But to see how quickly, like when a good king came out of kingdom, being the king, and a bad king comes in place, how quickly society diminished.
Yeah.
I mean, they went from, all being very good to all being skanky in 50 years, or 30 years. And it's really scary when you think about, our Christianity today.
This book relates to us today so much, I think. It is scary, Todd. And even, what we've studied so far in the minor prophets, of them putting their trust in themselves, their money, their riches, their wealth, and Baal, and here, even with these guys, putting their trust in their alliances that they have with foreign nations, that go bad. We used to have a good relationship with Iran many years ago. And I have friends of mine who were stationed in the military in Iran, and now that's gone south, bad. But as I study this stuff, I can track our nation so much, and it scares me. So, not to give you a whole lot of this, but 2 Kings 17:4. The king of Assyria discovered Hoshea, once again, not Hosea who we're talking about, but Hoshea, was a traitor. He had sent envoys to So, the king of Egypt. He no longer paid tribute to the king of Assyria as he had done year by year. Therefore, Shalmaneser seized him and put him in prison. And then Hosea rebukes these foreign alliances, declaring they're useless. He says in Hosea chapter 8, 8 through 10, Israel is swallowed up. Now she's among the nations like someone no one wants. For they gone up to Assyria like a wild donkey, wandering along. Ephraim has sold herself to lovers. Although they have sold themselves among the nations, I will now gather them together. They will begin to waste away under the oppression of the mighty king. In chapter 12, verse 1, Ephraim feeds on the wind. He pursues the east wind all day and multiplies lies and violence. He makes a treaty with Assyria and sends olive oil to Egypt. So Hosea uses a number of metaphors here to announce that these alliances have made Israel very weak and very naive. He compares her with a kind of flatbread that was cooked on one side but not the other, to an aged person whose hair is turning white and they're not aware of it, to a silly dove that flies right into a trap. You can find those in Hosea chapter 7, verses 8 through 12. Israel trusted also in wealth and military strength rather than God. Now look at what we just talked about here. Israel trusted in Baal, their idol. And we could probably compare that to things nowadays in our lives. Israel trusted in making these alliances, treaties, whatever, with foreign nations. Israel now trusts in wealth and military strength rather than God. Chapter 8, 14, they built palaces, fortified cities, but they forgot their creator. It says, Israel has forgotten their maker and built palaces. Judah has fortified many towns. But I will send fire on their cities that will consume their fortresses. They put their confidence in chariots and in warriors. Chapter 10, 13 and 14. But you have planted wickedness, you've reaped evil, you've eaten the fruit of deception. Because you have been dependent on your own strength and on your many warriors, the roar of battle will rise against your people, so that all your fortresses will be devastated. When assaults come, the Lord here is going to protect the southern kingdom of Judah, but not by military might, but through divine power. As he says in chapter 1 and 7 of Hosea, yet I will show love to Judah, and I will save them. Not by a bow, sword, or battle, or by horses or horsemen, but I, the Lord their God, will save them. Also, we see poor leadership. One reason Israel had such a shallow faith in God was her political and religious leaders were themselves not devoted to God. As Todd said a few minutes ago, the good leader, good king, they followed, people followed him, the king, they did well. And then the evil king would come, and things would go downhill from there. Poor leadership. Hosea refers to the uncertainty of kingly succession in Israel. A period in which one king after another was killed by someone desiring to take the throne. Yet every king who was crowned refused to follow God. Hosea 7, verse 7. All of them are hot as an oven. They devour their rulers. All the kings fall, and none of them calls on me. He's telling them, you don't call on me, call on God. You ever heard somebody say, well, I guess when all else fails, we'll pray to God. When all else fails. What do you mean? Why did you start with prayer? Begin with. All else fails, we'll start praying. The nation refused to heed God when selecting its leaders. In chapter 8, verse 4, they set up kings without my consent. They choose princes without my approval. So both the priests and the prophets failed to lead the people toward God. Chapter 4, verse 5. You stumble day and night, prophets stumble with you, so I will destroy your mother. Then also chapter 4 of Hosea 7 through 9. The more priests there were, the more they sinned against me. They exchanged their glorious God for something disgraceful. They feed on the sins of my people and relish their wickedness. And it will be like people, like priests. I will punish them for their ways and repay them for their deeds. Next, they also had this self-assured complacency. They felt secure and self-sufficient with the gifts that God had showered upon them. Chapter 10, 1 and 2, Israel was a spreading vine. He brought forth fruit for himself. As his fruit increased, he built more altars. As his land prospered, he adorned its sacred stones. Their heart is deceitful. Now they must bear their guilt. The Lord will demolish their altars and destroy their sacred stones. Chapter 13, 6 through 8. When I fed them, they were satisfied. When they were satisfied, they became proud. Then they forgot me.
That's right.
Let me read that again. When I fed them, they were satisfied. When they were satisfied, they became proud. Then they forgot me. Chapter 13, verse 6. They became proud. Pride is such a good thing. I know I'm kidding there. Anyway, they became proud, they forgot him, and it goes on to say, so I'll be like a lion to them, like a leopard I will lurk by the path, like a bear robbed of her cubs, I will attack them and rip them open. Like a lion, I will devour them, a wild animal will tear them apart. God's a little angry here. You see that?
Yeah.
Get them to understand
All
what
we
some
hear
of
is
the
God is love. Even their-
Oh, yeah. In their abundance and self-reliance, the people had completely forgotten God, totally ignored his ways. Chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. Hear the word of the Lord, you Israelites, because the Lord has a charge to bring against you who live in the land. There is no faithfulness, no love, no acknowledgement of God in the land. There's only cursing and lying and murder, stealing and adultery. They break all bounds, and bloodshed follows bloodshed. Because of this, the land dries up, and all who live in it waste away. The beasts in the field, the birds in the sky, the fish in the sea are swept away. When the land here needed to be planted with righteousness and love, Israel produced only iniquity, injustice, and lies. Chapter 10 of Hosea, verses 12 and 13. Sow righteousness for yourselves. Reap the fruit of unfailing love and break up your unplowed ground. For it is time to seek the Lord until he comes and showers his righteousness on you. God wants to bless these people. God wants to bless us. But you have planted wickedness, you've reaped evil. You have eaten the fruit of deception. In the second part of 13 and verse 14 of chapter 10. Because you have depended on your own strength and on your many warriors, the roar of battle will rise against you, your people, so that all your fortresses will be devastated. So here, because of their sinful self-sufficiency, a nation that was once great is now going to be destroyed.
It's a little too close to home.
I tell you, I mean, yes. It does. So in Hosea 13, 1 and 2, when Ephraim spoke, people trembled. He was exalted in Israel. But he became guilty of Baal worship, and he died. Now they sin more and more. They make idols for themselves from their silver, cleverly fashioned images, all of them the work of craftsmen. It is said of these people, listen to this, it is said of these people, this is chapter 13, verses 1 and 2, they offer human sacrifices, they kiss calf idols. Verse 3, 13, therefore they will be like the morning mist, like the early dew that disappears, like chaff swirling from a threshing floor, the smoke escaping through a window. Before Israel entered Canaan, Moses had warned Israel of the dangers of living in a land of abundance. He reminds them that everything they receive will be apart from their own effort. Yet in the midst of the blessings, they will be tempted to forget that God is the source. Deuteronomy 6, verses 10 and 12 tells us, when the Lord your God brings you into the land he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give you, a land with large, flourishing cities that you did not build, houses filled with all kinds of good things you did not provide, wells that you did not dig, vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant, then when you eat and are satisfied, be careful that you do not forget the Lord who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You follow that, right? All this great, wonderful stuff. Don't forget God. It can be an easy thing for us to do. Putting our trust and our confidence in other things. Well, let me put it this way, in things rather than Almighty God. Trusting in things. They've been warned. Good things they receive from God may create a spirit of self-sufficiency that will lead to their downfall. Deuteronomy 8, 10, 11. When you've eaten, you're satisfied. Praise the Lord your God for the good land that he has given you. Be careful that you do not forget the Lord your God, failing to observe his commands, his laws, his decrees that I'm giving you this day. He goes on in Deuteronomy 8, 12 through 14. Otherwise, when you eat, you're satisfied. When you build fine houses and settle down, when your herds and flocks grow large, your silver and gold increase, and all you have is multiplied, then your heart will become proud. And you will forget the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. Be careful, don't forget God. What do you have that God has not given you? Absolutely nothing. In one way, shape, form, or fashion, God has given you every single thing that you have. Thanks be to God, right?
The only thing we give ourselves is heartache and pain.
We should give thanks to God daily for what we have and for how he has blessed us. But it's easy to forget God when you have houses you didn't build, and vineyards you didn't grow, and wells you didn't dig. Deuteronomy.
The rest of Deuteronomy really tells the same story.
It does. I'm going to read on a little bit more of Deuteronomy here, Deuteronomy chapter 8, 17 and 18. You may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands has produced this wealth for me. But remember the Lord your God. I mean, who gives you the ability to do something? You know? Your talents. You might be an amazing realtor, CPA, car salesman, whatever it is. Who gave you that ability? Now, God wants you to work and develop your abilities, right? I wish God would give me the ability that he's given some of you to build stuff, rather than just a 5x5 sandbox that turned out most excellent. It really did. It wasn't quite square, though. But anyway, if I was David Laban or David Bailey, I'm sure I could build one. But I wish I had the ability to build stuff. I don't. I'm grateful for Google and YouTube to look things up. A lot of different things. I don't have these abilities, and I wish that I did. I believe God has given us different talents, right? I think that's biblical. We have different talents. We do different things. Who gave us those? God gave us those. Thanks be to God. You may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands has produced this wealth for me. But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth and so confirms his covenant, which he swore to your ancestors as it is today. And going on 19 and 20 of Deuteronomy 8. If you ever forget the Lord your God and follow other gods and worship, bow down to them, I testify against you today that you will surely be destroyed. Let them know, you do this, you're going to be destroyed. Like the nations the Lord destroyed before you, so you'll be destroyed for not obeying the Lord your God. So, that's all in the Hebrew Bible, right? In the Old Testament. Well, let's turn over to the New Testament. And let's see what the New Testament has to say about this, right? Y'all ready to get out of this Old Testament for a little bit, right? Next week, there's a quiz on the succession of kings of Judah, Israel, and of Egypt. Come prepared. Just kidding. Probably wouldn't show up.
Right.
So, the New Testament offers similar warnings. The rich fool thought his life was secure because his material abundance was great. Luke 12, 18 and 19. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I'm going to tear down my barns. I'm going to build bigger ones. Or I'll store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you got plenty of grain laid up many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, be merry. Isn't that what we all want to do? Eat, drink, and be merry. We like that, don't we? Eating and drinking and being merry. Whatever being merry might mean to you. It goes on, verse 20 and 21 of Luke 12. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will give what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves and is not rich toward God. So, you're not wrong to store up stuff, right? What would be wrong would be our heart and why we're storing them up. Just for me? What if I store up stuff for winter for myself, but also for friends and family and the poor and all like that? Don't think about me all the time. Paul tells the Corinthians that their pride and their boasting is false and delusional. 1 Corinthians 4, 6 and 7. Then you will not be puffed up, being a follower of one of us over against the other. For who makes you different from anyone else? What do you have that you did not receive? And if you did receive it, why do you boast as if you didn't? None are the source or cause of what they possess or have accomplished. All the skills and blessings which human beings enjoy remain distinct gifts from God. Everything we have comes from God. Everything we have comes from God. We are continually warned of the attitude of the church in Laodicea. Revelation 3, verse 17, you say, I am rich, I have acquired wealth, do not need a thing. But you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. Church, let me tell you, an attitude of self-sufficiency can destroy us even today. That concludes Hosea. So far, we've looked at Jonah, right? And who was next?
Amos.
Micah.
Was it Amos? Okay.
You weren't there, were you? You missed that.
I guess I did. Jonah, and Amos, and Hosea. Okay. Well, that's like a Micah. I think Micah starts next week. Anyway, but we have, we've kind of seen here in these prophets on how it could be so applicable to us today in the way that God dealt with people. And the underlying thing is God loves us all as he loved them back then. And he just wants us to be grateful, gracious people. He wants justice. We've seen that. He wants justice. He doesn't want the rich to trample on the poor. He wants the people with plenty to give to those who don't have as much. I mean, it's just taking care of one another. That's what God wants to see in our lives. And we see that throughout the Hebrew Bible. We see it today as well. So, any thoughts on this? Y'all talk to a lot more when John was teaching. Y'all were more engaged. So John might be teaching next week on Micah. Okay. John ain't answered me. Any thoughts though? I know some of this can be dry with some of this stuff, but not near as bad as the land grants. And read those. If you ever can't sleep, read those. Kill you. Okay, well, thanks for the feedback I did get. And next week I'm going to make it more exciting, and I'm going to have coloring books and slides and balloons and fireworks. All kinds of things. And in 2 weeks, worship on possibly the beach, 6:30 a.m. And if you would like to be on that committee with Big Alan Dunaway and myself, Adam Dunaway, let one of us know. We'll sign you up. $100 fee. Just kidding. Thanks for your attention.
Right.
Dying.